Thank you very much for coming. I think this is an exciting, wonderful development for IBP. As you know, we celebrated our 40th anniversary last year, and I think that the board were quite determined that we would kick off 2010 with new ideas, new initiatives, and an opportunity to deliver some of the things that interest you, rather than people like me. And we're going to be doing more of that this year. It seemed to me to be a wonderful opportunity to come here and be hosted by Hogan Lovells, because Hogan Lovells have also just had a big step change in their business, and they're embracing new markets and new ideas, and they soon understood I think the motives of IBP. So I'm going to hand over to Michael Stancombe, the partner and head of real estate at Hogan Lovells.
Right, well, welcome everyone. I'm not going to take up all of your time. I'm just delighted that we're able to host this event. It's the inaugural event as well. Conversation with John Waples. We all know him well. These are us humble lawyers, have read lots and lots of his stuff. So I'm going to hand over straight away to Claire, who's going to give him a grilling.
So I've made a couple of notes about John's career because it was quite distinguished. I wouldn't want to get it wrong. But obviously, we all know from reading the papers that John was the business editor of the Sunday Times until January, when he became managing director of Financial Dynamics, the PR firm, of which we have some staff members here who were involved with IBP Futures, may I add, before John said he would talk, just in case anyone thinks there's any sucking up going on. John was business editor of Sunday Times for 4 years. He worked there for considerably longer than that, 15 years in fact, and before he was city correspondent, he was deputy business manager, business editor, so he rose through the ranks. We're going to hear more about this. And before that, he actually started off life on Property Week's precursor, the Estates Times, where he was since 1988, working for Lee Mallet, who was then the news editor. And before that, I believe you started off life on the regional papers, which is where many journalists...
On the Harlow Gazette.
The Harlow Gazette.
The Bishop Stortford Gazette, yes.
And what drew you to journalism?
How to get into journalism? It's like everything. You get into it by fault. That you leave university with a pretty shit degree, and you and you wonder what are you going to do. And I was lucky enough to get I start again. I actually did something really quite clever at the start, which is I went to secretarial college, and I learned shorthand. And I went for a interview in Walthamstow with the Walthamstow Gazette to be a journalist and have some work experience. And they were kind enough to give me 2 weeks. And I was being interviewed. I took notes in shorthand, which impressed the guy John Yates, who was then the managing director of the Walthamstow Guardian. And they gave me 2 weeks, and from the first day I walked in, it was just a joy that actually suddenly you could go and work somewhere, and you not only did you work, you were first in and last out from the first day, because it was so fantastic and enjoyable. And after that, they gave me a job in Harlow. So there was an advert in, I think in the UK Press Gazette, for Estates Times. And I saw one of the magazines, and it looked terribly complex with all these sort of long words in it and square feet and this shorthand language I was about to go immersed in for the next 6 years. And I applied for it, and the editor, a guy called Eric Brown, was also from regional papers. And he said, OK, I'll offer you a job. To which, when I arrived, some people like Richard Elwyn, who's here tonight, said, why do you leave local newspapers to go and work here? It's crazy. Well, it wasn't crazy because it got you nearer to London. It got you into, because I thought if it didn't work there, you could go and do shifts on the Evening Standard. And that's how I started in the Estates Times.
We'll stick with the Estates Times for the time being, because we've got a property audience here. But I mean, two of your biggest stories there actually netted you IBP awards, which is quite good. And I phoned up Lee Mallet earlier, who was the news editor at the time, to see if he could remember what either of the winning stories were, and he did. And one of them was the British Gas Pension Fund. You actually found out that the person who was in charge of buying the properties for it was accepting backhanders.
Yeah, we couldn't prove it really, which was quite dull. But actually, I mean, I can't say much more because like the developers are still around today who bunged this guy lots of money. but we could write so much to say he had got suspended that he'd sold sites cheaply to developers. But it's one of those murky stories, you know, when you're on trade papers and you really get stuck into it, and you think it's the most important story in the world. It was one of those. I mean, of interest to a small audience, but boy, you know, it was good fun. And there was a similar one. And by the way, those IBP awards, when you win recognition for those stories, it's so fantastic to have, because you can go back and tell your wife, there's a reason why I've come home pissed for the last 6 months. But they were, and it was kind of a sort of validation point. And it was one of the, you know, it was really just useful to have as a marker to say, actually, you know, it hasn't all been bad.
Wonderful. I mean, obviously, you were on the Sunday Times for the best part of 15 years, but could you perhaps explain to an audience of largely non-national paper journalists what the kind of cycle of production is like on a Sunday, because it's not daily news.
No, and it is not. And I can you know what, I've had 16 years doing it, so I can tell you ad nauseum if you want. I can spend the next hour talking about the production of a Sunday newspaper, because I do know quite well that. But the production cycle is quite it's quite simple. I mean, you come in the office on Tuesday. You have a meeting with with the business editor, and there's about 10 of you in a room, and you all give your ideas to him, and he says they're crap and says think of them again, or come back this afternoon when they're better. But he then takes what is probably enough ideas he takes, or some of his own, into the bigger, wider conference which the editor holds, which all the section heads go to, and it's a table from there to about here, and 20 people around, and that lasts an hour and a half, and he goes round all the section heads, so you get a rough idea of what's going in the paper to make sure that there's no duplication, that someone on style isn't doing a piece on Richard Caring when you're about to go through his accounts and say what a crook he is in business magazine. He's got to talk. You know, the section of the paper has to talk to itself to make sure that there isn't a contradiction. And then on Thursday, the business editor has to get the formal list, where he'll go in and present that to the same conference team that he did on Tuesday, with all the ideas, with the page plan, with the big interview a week, with the big page 5 focus piece of the week. And then again, it's quite likely that half of that will change by Thursday afternoon, because you have to respond to events. And when you're reading it, you want to get a balance between some insight, some analysis on things gone past, some insight into things that are going to go forward, and a good running piece on the big story of the week. So you want to get that balance, and also get an interview candidate that sort of adds to the mix, you know, and changes the pace of the section, because you don't want to have slabs of copy all looking like the same thing. You've got to make sure that it looks fresh and exciting. You come back in again on Saturday morning early, and then you present another list at 9 o'clock to, again, the same group of people, but this time in the editor's office. And you go back, and then you then set it out on the pages as to where all the stories go, and then the reporters write it, and then of course you're responding to stuff in the week, especially the past 2 years when the weekend's been a lot of breaking news. It's been very exciting, actually. You know, so Sunday papers have had to respond to daily events, which is, you know, in a slower, more traditional market, and it doesn't happen. So it's been responding to breaking news and also making sure the scoops you've got stand up. But you hold back from checking out lots of stories till Saturday. So again, on Saturday it's fluid, because reporters are coming and saying it's not quite true, that story I have, it's this version, and you respond to it and move it up and down the page depending on how strong it is.
And why do you hold back until Saturday, so that they haven't got time to?
Because I think wrongly or rightly there's a great sense of mistrust, you know, and journalists are very protective of their stories. They're terrified that even if they tell their mother, it will suddenly leak out in the market. So, you know, everyone is naturally protective, especially if there's a really hot story and there's a big takeover, you know, or a Barclays rights issue that's going to be announced on Monday. You don't want to alert everything, because I've since learned, since having joined this side of the events, that actually people, you know, kind of spend all weekend then preparing for the announcement on Monday. So you want to surprise people. You want to hold things back as much as possible. So it becomes news. It becomes a story. And nothing worse than on a Friday morning you check it out and it's true and it still holds till Sunday. You kind of feel a bit stale. You know? Things are hotter and fresher when they're checked out at the last minute. Moving on
to the recruitment question, and obviously there are lots of people here who are on the trade papers. There's a few people who are here, I think, who freelance for national papers as well. What has impressed you? People walking through the door, Is it stories? Is it charisma? Or is it something?
It's only in the last 5 years I've really been involved in the recruitment of journalists, and it's so bloody difficult, to know when someone walks through the door, are they the right person? And you think of, your first thing is, you go, will they fit in the team? Is the specialist skill that they have, will it actually fit and complement the rest of the other members of the team? You then got to establish, are they news getters? Are they writers? Are you short of news getters or are you short of writers? Because especially on the big nationals, people do not underestimate the ability to write well. Because big broadsheet papers really need good writing, and there's a number of journalists that I've worked with who hate getting news, can't stand it, but they're brilliant at rewriting people's copy. They're brilliant at writing features, and they're great at researching them. So you're looking at a whole sort of variety of skills. But then you're looking at a person and you're going, is he going to fit? And you can see 8 people and probably choose one person, and it's the wrong person. You can only see 20 people. Unless you're exceptionally talented, you're not going to get found out. You've got to make the effort to go and get FaceTime in front of the editor, bump into him in a party, send him emails, say, have you seen this? What's going on? Because at the very least, you can say, look, hey, I've sent you 4 emails, you haven't responded. At least see me. And it's that, if you're really hungry to get onto a national, I think you can get onto national.
It seems a natural point to ask about your move into PR and deciding whether to leave the Sunday Times or
look, I mean, when you spend 16 years surrounded by money, day in, day out, and you see every entrepreneur in Britain, it kind of comes a point that you go, I'm going to be 50, and I really want to try and I want to do well in a different career, and I want to give myself time to do it. And I feel that I've done everything that I want to do out of journalism. And again, you do yourself out of a job that you become business editor. You think, well, what other job do I want to do that I couldn't do? Well, you want to become editor of the paper. Well, I'm not going to become editor of the paper. I mean, I'll own up to you now and tell you no one's going to ask me to do that. So what else to do? And then you think, I want to make some money. I want to still keep in contact with the people that I've known over the past 20 odd years. But I want to do it in a different way, and I want to have a look at a different way of doing it. So that's why I did move into financial PR. Is it selling out? I don't think it's selling out at all. I think I gave it a bloody good whack, actually, and I like to see other people last distance like that. Is it different? It's hugely different, but it's very stimulating and it's great fun, and I'm really enjoying it.
Do you think it holds you back if you've moved up in a trade paper to the point where you're a section editor?
Disaster. I mean, I said, our local papers, I still got, when I started local papers, the guy on a different paper, he's still there as editor because he's suddenly, kingmaker and the king of the castle in his own small town. And on trade papers, again, smart people get promoted early. They go, oh, that person's really good. Let's have them out as a sub. Let's make them features editor. Let's make them news editor. And as soon as you become news editor, feature editor, or sub, you write yourself out of the paper. You haven't got space, and that space is your marketing tool. Now, if you want to go into subbing, then that's fine. Now, I was never really like Ben that way. So, I think over promotion, getting promoted, getting spotted, and you feel quite special because you're amongst your peers, you're marked out, you get paid a $5,000 pay increase, and you're going, that's marvellous, I've done really well. And then before you know it, you can be marooned, actually. I know, I mean, you've got to do it, but there's no harm, but just make sure you don't stay there, and make sure that you move on from that promotion and have something else, because you can get,
But what if you've done that, but you've made the decision, I want to move on, and I'm happy with that. If you're coming to someone who's hiring, and you say, well, I've got these good stories, most of them were from 2 years ago, although I'm occasionally breaking good stories now. Do you think how much...
No, he doesn't. They've got to be current. And you've got to have stuff in the paper to show, because I'm an editor, so you go and you go, I'm an editor and you're an editor. Well, that's great, but I'm the editor here. You're not. I want you to be a reporter. I want you to go and get features and get stories and get good stuff in the paper. That's what I want you to do. not to be not to be an editor. Now, when you're there, you might find, you know what, you're really good. I want you to go and specialise in features, in which case this is great. In which case you're promoted to national. That's not bad, because then you can go and become, focus editor up front in the news section or something in years to come. But I've seen good people get pulled out of the game too early, which is why I say it's always good to be a late developer.
Odysseus, you've got a question.
If you would not have taken the job at the FT, where do you think you would have gone after being on the National for so long?
The terrible thing about journalism is the career structure is bloody awful. There you go. You work your socks off. You get to the top job where you go, and you go, okay, what next? I'm doing this for another 10 years. Or I go and write books, or you do a lot more freelance, or you write books and do your job, which means your day job's not going to be done as well as it was in the past. So why is your employer paying you all that money when you're not working full steam? The good thing about nationals is it does get you in front of the top people, because the top people still rate and value national newspapers. And I think journalism is interesting when you're dealing with people that matter, and it puts you in the game and in front of the people in the game. That's why I think Nationals are the place you have to go to get a voice and get taken seriously. Because you might write a brilliant blog, but I won't read it.
Okay, well, I'll bring things to a close. We'll wander upstairs shortly and have some wine, and John's going to join us.
No, please.
For the evening, if you've got anything that you don't want to wear in a completely public forum in front of him. But what I would like to say to all of you before we do digress, obviously, thanks very much to Michael and Lovells for hosting us. Thanks enormously to Gerald for sticking up for young people in the IBP and letting us put on this event. Bit of PR for the IBP. I know not all of you are members. The way that most journalists join the IBP is when you pay your £65 entry into the awards for the year, so you can win a nice prize. The deadline isn't until September, but the awards entry process actually starts at the end of June. So for our next IBP Futures event, which again will invite all journalists to come to for free, and if you're a PR person you'll be asked to make a small contribution, is going to be, we'll send you all an email tomorrow because we've got all your data, the 26th of July, in it to win it. We're going to have an IBP Futures Awards special with previous winners of the IBP, past and future judges of the awards, and some people who've done multiple entries for them over the years and know exactly how to win. Because if you haven't entered one before, then you really should. I mean, John will tell you that, and I will tell you that winning awards is really good for your career. At the very least, you'll get a pay rise. At the most, you might get a job somewhere better. So it would be well worth coming along to that. And Gerald has also set up a rather worryingly titled event called the Media Minefield on 30th of September, which is going to be hosted by Davenport Lions, and they have got a team of libel lawyers who will be prepared to answer any questions you might have about scrapes that you've got into, or things that have happened or may happen in the future. So that should be quite a fun event. So without further ado, can we please show our appreciation to John?